me ask you something. What would it feel like to spend your whole life certain that something existed? To have held pieces of it in your hands? To have measured it, named it, argued about it, drawn it, feared it, and to have never, not once, in 100 years of trying, seen it alive? For an entire century, that was the colossal squid. We knew it the way you know a stranger from the shadow they leave on a wall. We knew it from beaks, hard, dark, parrot-shaped beaks, pulled from the stomachs of sperm whales that had swallowed something enormous in the dark and carried the proof of it back to the surface inside themselves. We knew it from scars, circular welts carved into whale skin by something that did not go quietly on the way down. We knew it from half-digested arms tangled in fishing lines, from a frozen body here, a torn fragment there, from a single specimen sealed behind museum glass, and labeled, almost apologetically, the best we have. We gave it a name in 1925. And then, for the next 100 years, almost to the season, we never saw it breathe. Here is what I want you to understand before we go any deeper, because it will change how you hear everything that follows. This is the heaviest boneless animal ever found on this planet. Not the longest. The giant squid is longer, but the heaviest. The most massive invertebrate we know of. Something that can weigh as much as a grand piano, drifting somewhere far below you right now, in water so cold and so black that sunlight has never once touched it, and never will. And for one full century, every single thing we believed about this creature, we learned from its corpse. Stay with me, because the story of how we finally saw it alive is not the story you are expecting. And the animal at the center of it turns out to be stranger and quieter, and in some ways, far more fragile than the monster we spent 100 years imagining. Let me take you down to where it lives, so you can understand what it had to become. Go straight down into the ocean, and at first, you are in the world you know. Blue water, warm light, fish you would recognize. But the light does not last. By the time you have dropped 200 meters, most of it is already gone. By 500 meters, you are in a permanent, deep, bruised twilight. And then, a little deeper, the twilight fails completely, and you cross into true darkness. Not the darkness of a room at night, where your eyes slowly adjust and shapes return. A darkness with nothing on the other side of it. A darkness that goes down for kilometers. And it is cold, just above freezing. The pressure is crushing, growing heavier with every meter you fall. The weight of all that water pressing in from every direction at once. And here is the thing that shapes every animal down here, more than the cold or the dark ever could. There is almost nothing to eat. Food does not grow in the deep sea. There is no sunlight, so there are no plants, no forests, no fields. Almost everything edible has to drift down from far above. A slow, thin, unreliable snowfall of dead things sinking out of the sunlit world. In a place like that, every calorie is precious. Every movement costs you something you may not be able to replace. And an animal that wastes its energy in the deep sea does not live long enough to leave any young behind. This is the world the colossal squid was built for. And once you understand the world, the animal begins to make a terrible kind of sense. Now let me tell you about the day we came closest to it, long before we ever saw one alive. In February of 2007, a fishing vessel called the San Aspiring was working the Ross Sea, off the coast of Antarctica, hauling long lines baited for toothfish. As the crew drew one of those lines up from around 1,500 meters down, they realized something was wrong. Something had come up with it. A colossal squid had seized a toothfish already caught on the line, deep in the dark, and it had begun to feed. And as the line rose and the light grew, and the pressure fell away around it. The squid did not let go. Think about that for a moment. It had its meal. In a world where a single meal might have to last for months, it had finally caught one, and it would not release it. Not for the rising light. Not for the strange, thinning water. Not for anything. It held on all the way to the surface, all the way to the air, all the way into a world it was never built to survive. And by the time it reached the boat, it was dying and could not be saved. So the crew did the only thing left to do. They netted it and they froze it whole in a solid block of ice, and they carried it home to a museum in New Zealand, where scientists spent years thawing it, dissecting it, measuring it, learning everything a dead animal can teach. It weighed close to 500 kilograms. It remains the largest colossal squid ever examined in detail. And it is still there, behind glass, on public display. One of only a small handful of intact specimens that have ever existed in the entire world. Fewer than a dozen, in all of recorded history. And I want you to sit with the sadness of that, because it is the whole story of this animal in miniature. The single greatest specimen we ever recovered came to us because it refused to let go of a fish. It did not come to us because we were clever or because we finally tracked it down. It came to us because it was hungry and stubborn and unlucky, and because it made the one mistake a creature of the deep can make. It followed its food up out of the dark, from that frozen giant, and from the beaks and the fragments and the marks left behind on the bodies of whales, we slowly built a portrait. And the portrait was staggering. A colossal squid can grow to something like 7 meters long, and some estimates run larger still. That is longer than a small fire truck. Its eyes, and we will come back to the eyes, because the eyes deserve a chapter all their own, measured around 27 centimeters across in that frozen specimen. The size of a dinner plate, and the whole animal, at the very top of its range, may weigh more than a polar bear, more than a grand piano, with no bones inside it at all. Nothing holding it together but muscle and water and the strange chemistry of the deep. But size is the easy part of this animal. Size is what makes the headlines. What makes it truly strange is how it is built to live. Start with the arms. Most squid you have ever seen, most squid in every photograph, every calamari plate, grip their prey with suckers. Rings of muscle that clamp and hold. The colossal squid has those too. But it also has something else. It has hooks. Rotating, swiveling hooks, set into its arms and into the ends of its 2 long feeding tentacles. Hooks that turn, that pivot, that sink in and refuse to release. This is not an animal that grabs. This is an animal that impales. And down there, where you cannot see what is coming and cannot outrun much of anything, a grip that turns into a trap is not cruelty. It is arithmetic. In a place with almost no food, you cannot afford to let a meal slip away. So it evolved a body that, quite literally, does not let go. And that is the same trait, remember, that killed the giant in the ice. Let that sit for a moment. The very thing that kept its kind alive for millions of years is the thing that carried that one up to the surface to die. Evolution does not plan for boats. Now here is the part that changes how you see the whole creature. The colossal squid barely moves. We imagine it as a monster, a kraken, something that surges up out of the black with all of its arms thrown wide. But the science points somewhere much quieter and much stranger. Its body is filled with a special fluid, rich in ammonium, that is lighter than seawater. And that fluid does something remarkable. It makes the squid almost perfectly weightless in the water. Not rising, not sinking, but hanging. Suspended, balanced in the middle of the ocean, motionless, using almost no energy at all to stay exactly where it is. Let that sit too. The heaviest invertebrate on the entire planet spends most of its life doing as close to nothing as a living thing can do. It hangs in the dark. It waits. Its whole metabolism runs slow and cold, so slow that scientists believe a single large meal might carry it for months. Not hours, not days, months. This is not a hunter that chases. This is a hunter that has erased the need to chase. Over millions of years, it made a trade. It gave up speed, and it gave up the long fight. And in return, it got patience and stillness and near invisibility. It decided, if evolution can be said to decide anything, that the winning move in the deep sea is to stop struggling against it, to become part of the silence, to let the ocean carry the food to you, and to hang there so quietly, so patiently, so nearly invisible, that when something finally drifts within reach of those turning hooks, you are the last thing it will ever know. And everything inside it is tuned to that same cold economy. Like every squid, it carries 3 hearts, not 1. 2 of them push blood through its gills, and the third drives that blood around the rest of the body. And the blood itself is not red like yours. It runs blue because it carries its oxygen using copper instead of iron, a chemistry that works better in water that is freezing cold and starved of oxygen. Exactly the water this animal has always lived in. Every part of it, from the hooks on its arms, to the blue blood in its veins, to the fluid that holds it weightless in the dark, is a solution to the very same problem. How do you build something enormous and keep it alive in a place that offers you almost nothing? The colossal squid is the answer evolution arrived at. Not a monster, a masterpiece of doing more with less in the harshest, emptiest, most patient place on Earth. Are you still with me? Because now we come to the eyes. And the eyes are where this animal stops being merely impressive and starts being almost unbearable to think about. The colossal squid has the largest eyes of any animal that has ever lived. Not the largest of any squid, not the largest of any invertebrate, the largest eyes in the entire history of life on Earth. A single eye can measure around 27 centimeters across. The lens alone, the clear part in the very center, is thought to be about the size of an orange. Picture a dinner plate. Picture a soccer ball. Now picture an eye that size, glowing faintly in absolute darkness, taking in a world that has no sun and never has. Why would any animal need an eye that big? For a long time, the obvious answer seemed to be prey. Bigger eye, more light, better hunting. But when scientists actually modeled how those eyes perform in the deep sea, they found something unsettling. An eye that enormous does not give you a meaningful advantage at spotting small prey up close. What it gives you is the ability to detect one very particular thing. Something large. Something moving through the black from far away. Something that disturbs the faint, ghostly clouds of glowing plankton as it descends, lighting them up as it passes, like footprints appearing in fresh snow. Something like a sperm whale. And so, one of the leading theories is this. The largest eyes that have ever existed may not have evolved to help this animal find its food. They may have evolved to help it see the thing that eats it. To catch, at the very farthest edge of perception, the faint, disturbed glow of a hunting sperm whale dropping down through the water toward it. And to buy, with that early warning, a few precious seconds. A few seconds to react. A few seconds to try to slip away into the dark. I want to be honest with you here, because this channel is built on honesty and not on telling you only the version that sounds best. Not every scientist agrees with that theory. Some have argued that once you account for the sheer size of the animal's body, the eyes are not actually as unusual as they first appear. and that an eye that large would serve just as well for detecting anything luminous in the dark, predator or prey alike. The debate is genuine, and it is not settled, and I'm not going to pretend for you that it is. But sit with that first idea for one moment longer, because even as a possibility, it is haunting. It would mean that the most extraordinary eyes nature has ever produced exist not out of hunger, but out of fear. The biggest eyes in the history of the world, open in the dark, watching, waiting to see the shadow of the whale. And the whale, more often than not, wins. This is the part we do not like to say about the colossal squid, because it ruins the myth we built. Being colossal does not make you safe. The sperm whale is a deep-diving hunter with an enormous head built around what is essentially a biological sound cannon. And it does not need to see the squid at all. It listens. It sends powerful pulses of sound down into the black, reads the echoes as they return, and builds a map of the darkness out of nothing but noise. It finds the squid without a single ray of light, and it drops onto it with a certainty the squid can never match. The scars on the whales tell us the squid fights back. The beaks piled in the whale stomachs tell us who usually swims away. And it is not only whales. Sleeper sharks take them, slow, cold predators of the same deep water. In one study of shark stomachs near a remote scatter of southern islands, researchers found squid remains in 2 out of every 3 sharks they examined. And it is not only the giants that eat them. Seabirds take the small ones. Penguins take the young ones. Fish take the smaller stages. Scientists have now identified the colossal squid inside the diets of 17 different kinds of predator. 17. The largest invertebrate on Earth, and for most of its life, from the moment it hatches, it is somebody's food. Which brings us, finally, to the thing I have been holding back. Because for all of it, for the 100 years of corpses and beaks and scars and frozen giants and careful theories, there was one thing we had never actually managed to do. We had never watched one live. Not once. In 100 years of trying, no human being had ever seen a colossal squid alive, in its home, in the deep sea, moving under its own power, doing nothing more dramatic than simply existing. Every image you had ever seen was a dying animal at the surface, or a dead one laid out on a deck, or a frozen block of a creature behind museum glass. The living animal, the real one, the one hanging in the dark with its dinner plate eyes open, had never once let us near. And then, on the 9th of March, 2025, that changed. A research vessel called the Falkor was working the waters near the South Sandwich Islands, a scatter of frozen, forgotten islands in the far South Atlantic, down near Antarctica. It was part of an expedition searching for new life, mapping what still survives in the least explored corners of the ocean. They had a remotely operated vehicle, a robot submarine trailing a long cable back up to the ship, and they had sent it down into water almost 2,000 feet deep, 600 meters. Deeper than the Eiffel Tower is tall, stacked on top of itself, and then some. And there, drifting in the beam of the robot's lights, they saw it, a colossal squid. But not the monster, not the giant, a baby, a juvenile, only about 30 centimeters long, the length of your own forearm. Almost completely transparent, its body like living glass, its small arms trailing beneath it, its tiny hooks already there but no bigger than a fingernail, its whole delicate self glowing faintly in the artificial light of a machine built by a species it had no way of knowing existed. 100 years, almost to the year, after we first gave this animal its name, we finally saw one alive. And it was a child. And being a child means something very specific for this animal, something that makes the footage stranger still once you understand it. The colossal squid appears to live its life in stages, at different depths. The young ones, like the little glass creature in that footage, live higher up in the water, in that dim upper twilight, their bodies almost fully transparent. And as they grow, they sink. They descend, stage by stage, year by year, down into the deeper and darker water, until the great adults are thought to spend their lives near the very bottom of the living ocean, far below the reach of almost anything we can send down after them. Which means the baby we filmed, drifting there in the light, was at the shallowest and most visible moment of its entire life. From that point on, if it survives at all, its whole future is a slow fall into darkness. It was, in a sense, saying goodbye to the light at the very moment we first said hello. And there is so much we still do not know about what happens after that. We have never watched a colossal squid mate. We have never found their eggs drifting in the wild. We do not truly know how long they live, or how quickly they grow, or how the small transparent young become the enormous shadowed adults at the bottom of the world. The frozen female in the museum was found to be carrying many thousands of eggs, and that is nearly the whole of what we can tell you about how they make more of themselves. An animal this large, this famous, this old in our imagination, and we still cannot answer the most basic questions of its life: where it is born, how it finds another of its kind across all that darkness, where it goes at the end to die. It is a 100-year-old name attached to a life we have barely begun to glimpse. I need you to feel the full weight of that footage, because it is so easy to scroll straight past it. For a full century, we knew this creature only through violence, through what killed it, through what ate it, through the marks it left on the bodies of the things that consumed it, and the one poor giant that came to us in a block of ice because it would not release a fish. We knew it as a corpse, and a fragment, and a legend, and a monster. And the very first time we ever saw it truly living, and whole, and unharmed, it was small, and it was fragile, and it was utterly, completely unaware of us. It did not flee. It did not attack. It did not perform. It simply drifted there in the light, doing what its kind has done in that darkness for millions of years. With no idea at all that far above it, on a ship on the surface, a room full of human beings had gone completely, breathlessly silent. One of the scientists who helped confirm the footage said something afterward that I have not been able to put down. She pointed out that this animal has no idea that human beings even exist. And I keep turning that over in my mind. For 100 years, we searched for it. We named it, hunted for it, froze it, studied it, dreamed about it, feared it, told stories about it. And in all of that time, across all of that century, it was never once looking for us. It never knew we were here. It never knew we were coming. The entire relationship, from the very first beak in the very first whale, only ever ran in one direction. Here is what I want you to take with you when this video ends. We like to tell ourselves that the ocean is finished, conquered, mapped. We have charted the coastlines and crossed every sea and dropped our cameras into the deepest trench there is. And it is easy to believe there is nothing left down there that can still genuinely surprise us. And then you remember this: the single heaviest invertebrate on the entire planet, an animal the size of a fire truck, with eyes like dinner plates, a creature we named and cataloged before your grandparents were born, managed to hide from us, completely and successfully, for 100 years. Not in some distant corner of the galaxy. Here, on this planet. Beneath water, we sail across every single day of our lives. It was never really hiding, of course. That is the part that stays with me. It was simply living in a place we could not reach, in a darkness we could not enter, being exactly what it has always been, whether or not anyone was ever there to see it. The century of silence was never its secret to keep. It was our limit. It was the outer edge of how far we were able to see. And the moment we built a machine that could go a little deeper and hold on a little longer, the silence simply ended, as if it had never been difficult at all. And when we finally crossed that edge, on one ordinary day in the far cold south, what was waiting for us on the other side was not a monster after all. It was a small, glass-bodied creature, hanging patiently in the dark, unafraid, because it had never in its life learned that there was anything to be afraid of. The colossal squid was never the story we told about it. It was quieter than that, stranger than that, more alone than that. And it had been there the entire time, hanging in the black, watching the dark with the largest eyes the world has ever made, waiting for a shadow that, this once, was only us. The surface is not the whole story. It never was. If this stayed with you the way it has stayed with me, then you already understand what we do here. Every week, we go somewhere the surface doesn't show you. That's Abyss Files. Subscribe, and come with us the next time we go down.